Thank you. You ready? Everybody? Welcome to the May 1st, 2019 Wareham Conservation Commission agenda. Mr. Baptiste, we'll do a roll call, please.
Okay, members present would be Elisa Hurd, Mary Taggett, myself, Ken Baptiste, Rob Lassen, Jim Smith, and Chair Sandy Slavin, along with Agent David Bichette.
Thank you. We have continued hearings. Pharmacanis, Massachusetts LLC has requested a continuance. Is there anybody here for that hearing? I would request a motion to continue until May 15.
So moved.
I heard a motion.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained. We're continued until 5:15. The next hearing is Terry and John DeBillis.
Albus.
DeBellis? DeAlbis. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Okay. And please identify yourself for the record.
Bill Lockwood, Lockwood Architects, and Terry Diablos.
Thank you. Mr. Bichette will read to the project. Is this a change from last time?
No,
Okay, I don't need one.
I need one.
I think all we needed was a D.
Yeah.
P number, wasn't it?
Okay, so this project site is at 19 Nobsco Way in the Cremisa area. And this project involved replacing an existing concrete slab under an elevated dwelling and also enclosing the pier foundation with breakaway walls at this particular site. So there's really no change in the footprint. The existing concrete would be jackhammered out and then re-poured. And then the other work that would take place would be the installation of breakaway panels between the piers for the house. So at the last meeting, we had discussed that those would need to be tied to the piers, and that is shown on the plan as a detail. And also there was discussion of what types of materials potentially could be stored within that enclosure. And at the last meeting, we did not have a DEP file number, which we have since received. So I would recommend the issuance of the order of conditions to approve the project with the condition that we had discussed at the last meeting that no hazardous materials be stored in that enclosure.
Thank you. Anything to add?
Sounds good to us.
Questions from the board? I'll start down here.
No question.
No.
Anybody in the audience would like to speak for or against this project? Seeing none.
I move that we accept.
Close.
Close the meeting, the
Close the-
hearing. Close the meeting, close
I
the
have a
hearing.
motion to close the hearing.
Second.
I heard a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained. Hearing's closed. Now, your motion.
No, you make a motion.
Doing fine.
I move that we okay the project. Give me the words,
with the
Sandy.
addition
With
of,
the stipulation that no
Stipulations.
hazardous materials
No,
be
and
stored.
that we have the other regulations that we spoke of, such as tying down certain parts of the sub-basement.
So I have a motion for an order of conditions and no hazardous stored under the house.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, done. Before you do anything, please see Mr. Bichette. Thank you.
We will do so. Thank you all.
This, and there's that. The next hearing was Rocky Road Realty Trust Lot 4. They have requested a continuance until May 15. Anybody here for that project? Any, take a motion to continue in 5:15?
So moved.
I have a
Second.
motion, I have a second, all in favor? Opposed, abstained, we're continued until 5:15. Next up, Gary Osmond. Anybody here for that project?
I believe, Madam Chair, I believe that was supposed to be continued with Brian Brady in our office.
That's right.
Until,
Till the next meeting.
so continued until 5:15, but we've already said that.
On Osmond?
Yes, I think it was at the last meeting, correct?
Oh, you may be right.
No, we didn't. We
No.
We
continued it to this meeting, so we have to continue
Okay,
it
so I'll take a
again.
motion to continue. I have a motion, I heard it so moved, to continue to 5:15.
Second.
I have a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstained, continued until 5:15. Next up, South Coast Hospital Group,
Same thing.
same thing, I like a motion to continue them until 5:15. I have a motion.
Second.
I heard a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, continued in 5:15. Was there anybody here for the hospital group? Okay, thank you. We can't start the hearings until quarter after, but we can continue with some other work. We have a bill from the Dooley Disposal Services for the Westgate Conservation Area. Mr. Pichette, you want to talk about what we took down and had to clear away?
Yeah, so this is in regards to a project at the Westgate Conservation Area that involves the removal of an old pump house structure along the river. The foundation was left in place, but the structure was removed and disposed of in a dumpster, so the bill is for the cost of the dumpster. We had received a grant for this, so we will get reimbursed for the money, but we have to pay the bill first and then get reimbursed by the grant, so. But that's what the nature of the bill is for.
The total amount of the removal of the material was $550. I'll take a motion to approve payment.
So moved.
I have a motion.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, thank you.
It's pretty cheap.
Yes. There, that's done. So here's your paperwork. Do you want to talk about we have a June 5th, 2019 Conservation Commission meeting. Anybody thinking they might go to that meeting?
I'll be around.
Where is it? Is it the
No,
one?
this is for our conservation meeting to determine if we're gonna have enough members, because at the last
Oh,
meeting,
that's right.
we had several members that said they may not be here for that, so we need to.
So the question is, will we have a quorum?
I'm planning to.
I have a
be
yes.
there.
I'll be,
I have a yes. I have a no.
No.
I have a no. I have a yes. I have a no. We will not have a quorum.
You're not gonna be here either.
I will not be here.
Okay.
Cancel
Okay,
meeting.
well, so we'll just have to make that announcement known that we will not have a meeting on that date.
Okay. So, thank you. So when Kelly and you schedule the hearings, you just can't do it on that date. Do you want to go for certification of compliances? We have 3 minutes.
Might as well.
Hmm?
Might as well.
I'm not
think.
sure if, well, let's start with the second one, because I know someone's here for that one. I don't know if anybody's here for the first one that's on the list.
Okay. Coldier? Cloutier. Cloutier. 69 Agawam Lake Shore Drive as a certification of compliance. And please identify yourselves for the record.
I'm Catherine Wagner from Upper Cape Realty.
Madam Chair, I'm Bob Rogers with GAF Engineering. I have some photos and a couple of plans that would help the commission on this.
Okay, Mr. Bichette?
So again, this site is 69 Agawam Lakeshore Drive,
Sure.
and we've received a
We'll
request
share.
for a certificate of compliance. This is an old project that, for whatever reason, the applicant never requested a certificate of compliance for the project, which involved the reconstruction of a retaining wall at this site, which is along the edge of Agawam Mill Pond. So the issue is the wall was redone, but they also did some additional work, which was not part of the original plan or approval. And this involved the construction of a concrete ramp that goes down to the pond. So again, this work is beyond what was proposed and approved as part of this notice of intent.
Am I reading this right? 1991?
I was gonna say, that concrete looks
Correct.
old.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I've given you is the 91 plan and the plan that we recently did for the septic system repair. Katie Wagner is here because she is working for the seller of the property. She submitted the application for the request for certificate of compliance. We weren't aware that there was an outstanding order when we did the septic repair. So almost right after we filed the RDA, she was scrambling to get a certificate of compliance request put together. Mr. Cloutier passed away some years ago. Right now, his heirs, his stepdaughter and a brother, I believe, are trying to sell the property. So the 91 plan, the intent was to replace a block wall with a poured concrete wall. And then at that time, Mr. Cloutier decided to add wing walls and eliminate the wood boat ramp and put in the concrete ramp that's there today. So all of that work was done at the same time. And for whatever reason, it escaped the town's attention, I guess. Our feeling is that it's been there for such a long time. We'd be willing to submit a new notice of intent to request an amended order to sort of clear up the paperwork on it. But it would be to try and rework anything physically at that location would do more harm than good. So, obviously, the person who's responsible is long since deceased, but we know we're not in a position to get a certificate of compliance, but we think that this could be remedied with a new, an after-the-fact notice of intent.
Then if I look at the plan from 1991 to an existing one, we have an existing wood deck that was not on the plan. We have an existing concrete porch that was not on the plan. We have existing wood steps not on the plan. What else?
That's correct, Madam Chair.
So it wasn't just the work along the water, there was just miscellaneous work done on the front or back of that property.
Sure, and I don't know the timing of any of those items, whether it was done with or without a permit. I'm assuming, I don't know.
Yep.
But obviously, the biggest discrepancy is the work for the wall, the concrete boat ramp.
What I would suggest to the commission members is this is one that you might want to go look at before you make a decision or decide upon an action, because this is a little out of the ordinary, so it might be worth seeing firsthand, and then come back with your thoughts on what you would like to do with this.
Would we see anything more than we don't have in this very nice colored picture?
Well, you'd see some of the other items that you mentioned that aren't necessarily shown. And I think that particular setup is something that you do have to see. Even the picture doesn't really give you a good sense of how it exists. So I would say you should go take a look at it.
Anybody would like to go down and take a look before we say what to do next?
Sure.
You go down.
Go on your own time, or?
Yep, go in your own time. I'm going to ask the question, when do you expect closing? Is this holding it up?
Yes.
I knew that was going to be the answer.
Well,
Well, they also have a separate application in front of us tonight for a septic system upgrade that also has to happen, I would assume. for this.
Well, that was going to happen after closing. We
Okay.
just needed to get the permits before
Yeah,
closing.
and the Board of Health approved the septic system repair tonight, and once they had, 2 or 3 prices, they would do, escrow things and do it that way.
Okay.
But if that's the, commission wants to take the time to review it, and we come back on the 15th, really, it's either a new notice of intent or something more severe. And we hope it's nothing more severe than filing a new notice of intent.
Well, you gotta file a
In
notice
history.
for the septic anyway.
Well, we filed an RDA for the septic, and, I can explain why when we do that hearing. So, and again,
Yeah, so,
the septic is pretty straightforward. It's an environmental upgrade. The Board of Health has approved it. We can deal with that. But the remedy for the wall and the boat ramp could take longer. I don't know. It's up to the commission.
is it possible that when you do the notice of intent for the septic system, you do the changes that have been already,
I wouldn't want
All
to
in
tie
one.
those two together, just because, I don't know, but, DEP is gonna weigh in on, if it's a new notice of intent, obviously. Obviously, you don't wanna give us a certificate of compliance tonight for the prior 1991 work. And if there's any issues,
Why not?
because I have to come back here again and again and again. So, it's whatever your pleasure is. I just, if you told me tonight to come back with a notice of intent, and then we could have an on-site, and then, I'd be filing that next week, and I guess or thereafter, and I'd be getting your, whatever your first meeting in June is, June 19th. We'd be having a hearing then, so.
Well, the only thing I would suggest on that note is before the commission goes there and they're not sure which direction they're gonna wanna go with it, then how are you gonna file a notice of intent to do what they wanna do when they haven't made that choice yet, I guess is the question.
Yeah, well, we would absolutely be filing a notice of intent to keep things the way they are right now, stabilized, in place, zero disturbance.
Right, but
And-
that may not be what the commission wants, so
Right,
that's what
but
I'm
at
trying
least-
to get at.
Right, but at least we'd be in the hearing process versus I find out what you want on the 15th, and then I still can't get a hearing until, the
third week in June?
third week in June, June 19th.
Isn't that when we're gonna not have the meeting?
We're not having
On
it
the
on the
5th.
5th.
Okay.
Okay,
So continue it.
so this is a certification of compliance. There's no hearing or anything like that, just that we promised to go down and take a look at the site before the next meeting on May 15th. And then we can come back and talk about what would be needed in order to get a certification of compliance for this work that was done, that was not approved. All right? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Then we're, okay, ready for our first hearing, please. Who's,
We are.
yep, you're up.
I am. Notice of public hearing. Pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held in Room 320, Wareham Multi-Service Center, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, Mass., on Wednesday, May 1st, 2019, at 7:15 p.m., on the request for determination of applicability for Carlton Richardson, 29 Fieldwood Drive, Sagamore Beach, Mass. 02562, to remove a tree located on Assessor's Map 46, A1, Lot 56, 122, Pinehurst Drive, Wareham, Massachusetts.
Thank you. Anybody here for that particular project?
I'm Calvin Richardson.
Okay, just come up and have a seat at the table, please.
At this table.
At that table. Mr. Bichette will read to the project, and then you may speak if there's anything you'd like to add. Do you have the green abutter cards, the notification of your abutters?
I do,
Okay, thank you.
and I did get them all.
Okay. Yeah, Rob, could you go get them for us? Thank you. No, he'll come get them from you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. The project site is at 122 Pinehurst Drive, and the project involves the removal of a tree in the buffer zone of a coastal bank and within a coastal flood zone. The applicant's proposing to remove a tree at this site. It's approximately 45 feet from the seawall, and it's also within a coastal flood zone. The tree is in close proximity to the applicant's house and garage, and his request is to remove that and possibly replant a smaller tree. The stump would be left in place or possibly just ground down below the surface. I would recommend the approval of the request with a negative determination number 2, with the approval of stump grinding if the applicant wishes to do that also.
That's Pinehurst, that's the water, that's the tree. Anything you'd like to add?
No, I'd like to grind the stump down to the ground.
Right.
This is the one that's in the middle of the fence?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on the board?
No.
No.
Anybody in the audience for or against this project? I'm seeing none. Like a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Thank you. And I have a second. The hearing is closed.
Thank you very much.
Wait, we're not done. I need,
Motion to grant.
okay, I have a motion to grant, and that's to grind it down. So I have a motion to grant.
And grind down the stump.
Yes. I need a second.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstain? See Mr. Bichette before you start the work, because you need some paperwork, okay?
Okey-doke. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Notice of public hearing. Pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6. The public hearing will be held in Room 320, Wareham Multi-Service Center, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, Mass., on Wednesday, May 1st, 2019, at 7:15 p.m. on the request for determination of applicability for the Onset Fire District. All right. Care of Conoco Engineers and Scientists, Inc., 4 First Street, Bridgewater, Mass. 02324, to construct a fire station located on Assessor's Map 131, lots 1022, 1023, and 1024, 4, 8, and 10, Cranberry Highway, Wareham, Massachusetts.
Thank you. Is there anybody here for this particular project? Please have a seat at the table and identify yourselves for the records.
Hello, my name is Damian Dimitrick with Conoco Engineers and Scientists.
Damien,
Damian Dimitrick.
Damian.
Yes, D-A-M-I-E-N.
thank you. Mr. Bichette will speak to the project. Where is it?
This must be the, that must be the Salvation Army.
I would say so, yeah.
And that's Salvation Army.
Well, this is the Cranberry.
This proposed project is at 8 Sand Pond Road, and the project involves the construction of a new fire station at this location. This request is being submitted as part of the site plan review requirements. The proposed building and site work would not be within any wetland resource areas or the buffer zone, and it is not within a coastal flood zone. I've reviewed the plan and the site. The tree clearing work has already taken place at the site, or largely taken place. Though the work is proposed right up to the edge of the jurisdictional areas, I agree with the applicant's representation that there is no work within jurisdictional areas. So with that, I would recommend the issuance of a negative determination, number 1 and number 6, to reference that.
Is there anything you'd like to add?
I can run through a brief description of what's going on in the plans.
Oh, yes, we need the green cards.
The green cards.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll run through quickly. As you stated, we have the Salvation Army on Cranberry Highway. Existing site is a parking cleared lot with an existing structure that will be demoed with a fire station. As stated by Mr. Chair, we're outside the 100-foot buffer zone to a cranberry bog wetland in back there, and then the FEMA floodplain elevation is 14, and we stay outside of that proposed elevation. All grading and clearing development will be outside of both of those zones. It is about 1,400 square foot, or 14,000 square foot building with a proposed parking lot, some extra gravel area in the back, and parking areas, lighting, fire poles, general stuff for the fire department to, maintain their activities and stuff like that. As far as grading design, simple, mostly overflow and flow to a detention basin with sediment 4 bays and appropriate drainage controls, BMPs to mitigate, all drainage flows. Those are the basics of the project. If you have any other questions.
Anything on the board? It's outside of our, anybody here in the audience that wanted to comment on this project? I'm seeing none,
Why did they have to file?
because that's part of planning.
Yeah, site
Planning
plan
says you
review.
must make sure there's no water, you're not on wetlands. Planning or
Yes.
zoning, which one
It's
is?
part of the special permit process.
Right.
Yeah.
RDA is required.
We've seen this every once in a while, we have no say in it, but they need us to formally say we have no say in it.
It's so that when the zoning board goes to approve it, or whatever board that's doing the site plan review has an assurance that either the site is not within the commission's jurisdiction or that we've issued a permit for it. So it gives them the indication either way, so that they understand that the commission's reviewed it.
I thought that was a part of your, I don't know, part of your sign-off.
Not for this particular process. It's part of the regulation that requires that.
Every once in a while, we get one that says, because it needs a special permit, we have to be formally saying, hey, it's not within our ballpark. Okay,
That's fine.
so we have a motion to close the hearing, please.
Second.
I heard a so move, and I heard a second, the hearing is closed.
We got it covered.
Got it covered.
You want to do a motion?
I need a motion to, no, I need a motion to grant the project as a -1 and 6.
-1, all right.
And 6. That's the motion.
Second.
I heard a second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Notice of public hearing pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held in room 320, Wareham Multi-Service Center, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, Mass., on Wednesday, May 1st, 2019, at 7:15 p.m. on the request for determination of applicability for Bartholomew Family Boggs LLC, care of NECS, New England Consulting Services, P.O. Box 1255, Lakeville, Mass. 02347, to install a ground-mounted solar array for an on-site agricultural use located on Assessor's Map 97, Lot 1031, 24 West Street, Wareham, Mass.
Excuse me? Can I help you? Okay. Thank you. Anybody here for this project? You'd like to come forward and identify yourself? Thank you. And can you identify yourself for the record, please?
Sure. Ian Ward, New England Consulting Services.
Mr. Bichette will speak to the project.
So again, the site is at 24 West Street, and the project involves the construction of a solar array in the buffer zone 2 bordering vegetated wetland at this site. A 10 by 137-foot solar array is proposed, and this is approximately 24 feet from the top of an agricultural canal and approximately 60 feet from the edge of natural bordering vegetated wetland. The location of the proposed solar array is already cleared land, so there will be no tree clearing needed for this project. There'd be 18 support pilings that would be installed to hold the solar panels. And these are being installed to provide electricity again for the agricultural operation. There's no grade changes proposed. The only question I had was the detail on the plan submitted shows sort of both a concrete detail holding the pilings and then just a regular driven pile with no concrete. Do you know which of these two is going to be utilized at this site, or?
The electrician is going through that right now.
Okay.
I think it's going to be concrete, but I'm
Okay.
not 100%.
All right, no, I was just curious on that, so we understood which it would be. Either way, I would recommend the approval of the project with a negative determination number 3.
Any questions?
Nope.
I don't know if they're looking, if they got any proposals on. I know there's a company in Marshfield that makes those concrete stanchions for those.
Okay.
Pembroke, yeah, not Pembroke, Situate Pipe. They're in Marshfield.
Thank you.
It's a very clean installation. It's quite a setup.
Okay.
Any other questions? Anybody in the audience for or against the project? I'm seeing none.
Motion to close?
I have a motion to close the hearing. I have a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, the hearing is closed.
Motion to grant with a -3 determination?
Yes, I have a motion for a -3.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor? Opposed, abstained? You got it. Please see Mr. Bichette before you start the work.
Town of Wareham. Notice of public hearing. Pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held in room 320, Wareham Multi-Service Center, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, Mass, on Wednesday, May 1st, 2019, at 7:15 p.m. on the request for determination of applicability for Catherine LaPlante, care of GAF Engineering, Inc., 266 Main Street, Wareham, Massachusetts, to upgrade a sewage disposal system located on Assessor's Map 129A-1, Lot 121, 69 Agawam Lake Shore Drive, Wareham, Mass.
Madam Chairman, for the record, my name is Bob Rogers with GAF Engineering. That first sheet is the same as the one I gave you earlier, but just in case, for convenience.
Okay, Mr. Bichette?
So the project site is at 69 Agawam Lakeshore Drive, and this project involves a septic upgrade, and this is in the buffer zone to Agawam Mill Pond. The existing cesspool is proposed to be replaced with a new Title V nitrogen-reducing septic system. The new system would be approximately 71 feet from the edge of the pond. An RDA was filed for this project. When the entire system is within the buffer zone, the commission has been requiring notice of intents to be filed for those kind of projects, which this is the situation here. This isn't just a partial project or minor work in the buffer zone. The entire system is in the buffer zone. So I don't have a problem with the project per se, because, you know, it's an upgrade like we normally see, but I would recommend that this be voted to be a positive determination so that a notice of intent is required, just as we typically do on these cases.
Bob, anything to add?
Yes, Madam Chair. So we feel like we have at least 4 very good reasons why this should not rise to the level of a notice of intent. As I previously had said before, that it just mentioned that the Board of Health has approved this system earlier this evening. Agawam Mill Pond is extremely well protected by the presence of the house and the shed and the hedges. We are adding silt fence on the plan, but this is a very shallow system. It is an environmental upgrade in terms of replacing the system. There is no grade change whatsoever as part of this work. There's going to be, basically, you have a 10-wheeler parked in the driveway and an excavator, and the material is going to go right in the truck and be carried away, and then the system is going to be installed so that there's 2 feet of cover over the septic tank and 2 to 3 feet of cover over the chambers. The job is going to take about 4 days, and it's going to be over and done with. You know, because of those reasons, we felt like the additional work, expense, and work for the commission and having to come back for a certificate of compliance for a septic system upgrade, which the Board of Health is going to be enforcing the certificate of compliance on that system. So we felt like we had a perfect situation, if you will. There's no change in grade. There's no fill being brought in. There's no chance of any sediment migrating to Agawam Mill Pond because of the structures. And so we felt that if all the commission needed was notice to the office and the installation of the silt fence, that those conditions could be made under the RDA, under a -2. I apologize for not checking with Mr. Prichette ahead of time. But, you know, we feel like that this, you know, it only rises to the level of a notice of intent if the commission has that feeling for a consistency stake. But when you look at the site-specific conditions on this lot and the fact that the system is not a mound and there's no material being brought in, we think that the environment is suitably protected with a condition -2 silt fence and notice to the office.
Thank you. Comments, questions on the board? I'll start down this end.
No.
No questions. Any discussion on whether or not we do a negative 2 or a positive determination and require a notice of intent? Any discussion on that?
I don't know what the precedence is.
Yeah, that's
What does it gain us?
what I was thinking.
What does it gain us? Do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, we've done probably 100 of these very similar to this, and they've all been notice of intents. The reason why is you have better conditioning power over the project, and you do have an opportunity to make sure that the site is stabilized. The Board of Health is going to issue their certificate of compliance for the system, but they don't necessarily look after the issues that we're looking after as far as how the site's going to be stabilized in the long term. So for those reasons, as I stated, I believe that even though Mr. Rogers has mentioned some points for why he thinks it doesn't need to be a notice of intent, it's my opinion that it still should be for the reasons that I mentioned. And again, we've done a lot of these very similar projects, and GAF themselves have filed notice of intents for the exact same projects that we're looking at here today. So that's my recommendation, and I would stick with it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Any other questions on the two, one versus the other? Is there a reason why a notice of intent wasn't filed if you tended to be what's been done in the past when a septic system is done inside this close to the wetlands?
Well, I had a conversation in the office with Brian before we filed, and based on the results of, you don't know until you do the perk test and you do the design and you see how things work out. And, again, we just felt like in order to save the client the expense, the time, and the responsibility of the future certificate of compliance, we just looked at all of this work being done in the front yard and just being, no stockpiling, no change in grade. It's a very flat yard. All I would say is if the only thing you're going to do under an order of conditions is notice to the office and erosion control, those two things can be done under the RDA. And if there are special conditions that you foresee, we didn't foresee them. And so it's just, and we see how busy you guys are as well. You do your thing, and that's your right, and that's great. And we do have a lot of experience in Wareham. In many other municipalities, this would be a RDA. Almost every single septic system upgrade would be done under an RDA in a lot of other towns, because they would see the Board of Health regulations as being, ensuring that the most important component, the system, gets done properly.
Okay. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak for or against this project? Seeing none, I would need to, what would the board like to do? Do you want to close the hearing or continue? You want to close the hearing? I need,
May I ask, Dave, what types of site stabilization would a notice of
into the
intent-
mic, please.
What site stabilization would be for a notice of intent as opposed to the RDA that we couldn't do tonight since they're coming back anyway?
Right. Well, as I mentioned, under the RDA, you don't really have the conditioning ability that you have under the notice of intent, under the order of conditions. And as with many of these projects, one of the standard conditions we have is to make sure the site is revegetated in the disturbed areas, things of that nature. So you just have a little more strength in terms of your review ability when you have an order of conditions in place. And as I said, that's how things have been done typically by the commission for that reason.
But the applicant's willing to put in erosion control, silk fences,
Yes, absolutely.
which we would have required under notice of intent.
Right, yes, yes.
But we can't force you to do it if we do this RDA,
Well,
but you're willing to
Yeah.
do it.
Well, no, absolutely. Like I say, I don't, you people have been at this for a long time, and you know what you want and you know what you like. But if I go to Taunton, there's a 20-item checklist for an RDA. You can absolutely condition an RDA for the basics, the notice to the office, silt fence per the plan, and, of course, we're gonna loam and seed it when it's done. They're trying to sell the property to a new owner. But that lawn in the front yard is as flat as can be. And so, however long it takes to grow the grass, there's not a chance in the world with the sandy soils of the loam making it to the backyard. So I don't wanna keep repeating myself.
Thank you. I forgot, did we close the hearing?
We did
No, we didn't.
Okay, so that's why we allowed never mind, I lost track.
Debating whether we were going to close it or continue it.
And if we close it, then we have to discuss before we close it whether or not we're going to go with a positive determination or a -2.
Right, so there's really no reason to continue it that I
Nope.
can see.
No.
Nope. So if it's a positive determination, we will require a notice of intent for the septic installation. A -2 approves the plan that's in front of us.
And the only reason is because of the condition of the silk fence and erosion
Reseeding,
control.
yeah, and reseeding after.
And that is in the plan.
And requiring an as-built plan, which we wouldn't get under an
RDA.
RDA.
Which would require us to have a certification of compliance after the fact, so.
Right.
Right, but will the Board of Health have an as-built plan on it?
They will for the system, they won't for the entire site in terms of the limit of disturbance and things like that.
Well, since there's no grading, Madam Chairman, then really it will be, most septic systems, you get an as-built, but the proposed grading, isn't shown, unless you have to do a full certificate of compliance. The grading will be accurate after the fact, as it is on the plan right now.
If I take a look at the other review that we're going to do when requiring notice of intent for all the additional work that has been done since 1991, it includes the front steps and the walkway, correct? I think that's an additional that was not on the 1991 plan. So we are going to have a notice of intent for the whole property.
Yes, you will. Yes, I guess that's another,
I'm just,
it's another justification for allowing the RDA for the septic system alone.
okay, board, it's up to you.
We certainly
Someone-
will be filing a notice for the rest.
Do you want to close the hearing? I need a motion to close.
Motion to close.
I have a motion to close. I need a second. I heard a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Hearing is closed. Now I need a motion as to what you want to do.
I think that we seem to be working under the shadow of another upcoming notice of intent. Will that not effectively, rationally protect us on this anyway?
Well, it may on this particular site, but then
Well, we're only voting on this
as we go
particular
down the
site.
road, you're gonna start seeing everybody coming in for RDAs on these projects now, if that's the way you decide you wanna do it.
Well, if they come in and have another project following immediately with a notice of intent, I mean, I don't think we're gonna see the same.
I don't know. It makes me nervous because, well, the thing concerns me is there's going to be an NOI filed on the other work, which is going to hinder your passing anyway, because that certificate's not issued and you gotta file for that anyway, so I know you don't wanna couple it all together, but I don't see
Yep,
where,
yep.
where there's really,
We can't, can't ask the questions, but you can make the hearing's closed, so we can't go back and forth.
Well, no, Madam Chair, I believe it's up to your discretion entirely.
Yeah, so I'm trying to get a feel for the board as to whether they
you
want a
can-
-2 or a positive determination requiring an NOI.
I am leaning toward a -2 for this case, only because we're going to be having an NOI for the rest of the project, and there's so much.
Well, it would require a notice of intent for the septic system, which is different than a notice of intent for the work that has already been done. There would be 2 different NOIs, correct?
That's as he's requesting it to be, because he doesn't want to tie the two together. So if the board requires a notice, then he's going to file 2 separate notices, as he's just stated.
I don't think that, I'd stop moving your way too. For the simple fact that I can't see making them file 2 notices of intent for one piece of property.
So you're looking at a notice of intent to carry both projects.
Yes.
So this will be a positive determination requiring an NOI for the septic system, and we won't know until the next meeting whether or not you want an NOI for the rest of the work that's been done without approval. Am I confused?
No, that's a double jeopardy.
Yes, it is.
It is confused. What I'm thinking, and I'm sure Alicia's thinking the same thing, is give them the NOI for the septic, give them the RDA for the septic, and the NOI is gonna have to be for the rest of the stuff.
Okay, so make one
NOI,
notice
one-
of intent for the whole
Yeah,
project.
They're still doing
Okay.
2 filings for the same piece of property, but, I think it's a little excessive to turn around and require them to
A second notice of intent for,
do maximum filing for, 2 maximum filings for
Okay.
one property.
so I'll take a motion for
A negative,
a negative determination with a request for an NOI for the property.
that's exactly it, so moved.
That's the motion?
That's the motion.
That's the motion.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm here for the next one, too. If you let me.
We're gonna have to charge you rent for that seat,
You ready?
Go ahead.
Notice of public hearing.
wait, you
Pursuant to
show
the
me.
provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6, a public hearing will be held in Room 320, Wareham Multi-Service Center, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, Mass., on Wednesday, May 1st, 2019, at 7:15 p.m. on the request for determination of applicability for Factory 5 Racing, care of GAF Engineering, Inc., 266 Main Street, Wareham, Massachusetts, 02571, to construct a warehouse building located on Assessor's Map 108, Lot 1004H, 7 Tow Road, Wareham, Mass.
Thank you. Please identify yourself for the record.
Madam Chair, and for the record, Bob Rogers with GAF Engineering.
Thank
You may not need to open those all up. This is similar to the previous one you had. It's because of the zoning and the planning board hearing that's coming up.
Okay, Mr. Bouchette will speak to the project.
Yeah, so again, this is at 7 to 9 Tow Road, and the project involves the construction of a 12,000 square foot warehouse at this site. And again, this is being filed as part of the site plan review. The project is not within the commission's jurisdiction, so again, I would recommend the negative determination number 1 and number 6.
Bob, anything to add?
Well, as I told David earlier today, there was one procedural glitch where, we submitted the RDA to DEP, but the immediate abutter notifications didn't go out until Monday. So even though there's absolutely no wetland on this property, it's, procedurally, we should continue to the 15th so I can give you the rest of those green cards. The planning board public hearing is on the 13th. But it's, I don't want to walk away without disclosing that the direct abutters unfortunately weren't notified of tonight's hearing.
Thank you. Is there any questions on the board? No? Anybody here for this particular project? I'm seeing none.
Motion continue.
I have a motion to continue, waiting for the green cards. I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstain.
Thank you.
Notice of public hearing. Pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protected Bylaw, Division 6, a public hearing will be held in Room 320, Wareham Multi-Service Center, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, Mass., on Wednesday, May 1st, 2019, at 7:15 p.m. on the request for determination of applicability for Colin and Ann McNay, care of N. Douglas Schneider and Associates, Inc., P.O. Box 4801, County Road, Mattapoisett, Mass. 027, for the demolition of an existing house on Assessor's Map 32, Lot 1003, 49 Warren Point Road, Wareham, Mass.
Please identify yourself for the record.
For the record, I'm Dave Vigna from Schneider Associates.
So the project site is at 49 Warren Point Road, and the project involves the demolition of an existing dwelling in the buffer zone to a coastal bank. It's proposed to demolish the existing dwelling, garage, and foundations, and to grade the area to match the existing contours, and then loam and seed the disturbed area. The existing dwelling is partially within the buffer zone to the coastal bank, and that's why the application has been filed. Upon review of this property and some previous aerial photos, I've noticed that there has been significant tree clearing on this site on the coastal bank and within the buffer zone to the bank that was never reviewed or approved by the commission. So I would recommend a continuance of the hearing to have this issue looked into, as the commission may want to take further action beyond voting on just simply what's in front of the commission being proposed at this time.
Any comments, please?
I'm unaware of the tree cutting. May I ask Mr. Bichette, roundabout what year you were going back on that?
Looks to be probably a couple years old, I would say. 2 to 3 years, based on the aerial photos, but it's definitely nothing we've ever approved. And if you look at the two, it's a significant clearing that's been done.
Any idea when the house changed hands?
2014.
So it's been...
It's done after that, yeah.
Is there something you can ask your client about?
I can certainly ask the question. The question I would ask this board is if it would really factor into the application before you. In other words, if there was a violation that requires a notice of intent, they'd still like to proceed with the application. And looking at what's proposed, if you look at where we're proposing the work, the house is probably 95% out of the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission. In fact, it's 13 feet above the base flood elevation of 22. The contour at the back of the house is 36. That's above mean sea level, so we're significantly well out of the flood zone vertically, and horizontally, we're talking about a secondary coastal bank, which is significantly from the shoreline. So it really wouldn't, regardless of the action the commission would like for anything that took place down by the shoreline, it wouldn't change what's before you, which is, we're seeking negative determination to simply demolish the house, level the ground, which is relatively flat anyway. And there's no house being proposed, nor we're not requesting for approval of a new footprint at this time. There'll be an additional filing in the future for anything that they plan in the future. The driveway tennis court would remain the same. That's our access. Any stockpile materials would be an additional 50 feet plus away on the north side of the house. I'd be happy to meet Mr. Bichette at the site perhaps next week, and we can proceed from there.
So the clearing is from, the clearing you noticed was from the house all the way down to the water, to Buzzards Bay.
Maybe not right to the water, but, you know, not too far
Well, it
from
says limit of the lawn. So they probably cleared down to the limit of the lawn, which was different than the coastal bank. I bet you got a lot of green grass in there, a lot of nitrogen. Mm-hmm. Okay. I think I would like to hear what type of work had been done by them without permit, how close they came to the water's edge. Because you want to meet him there and talk to him about what the owners have to say?
Yeah, sure. I have no problem with that. We're going to have to do that anyway at some point.
Because if in fact we have indicated that they have cleared without approval, I can expect a replanting plan. Even though, but can we without a notice of intent? This is just an RDA.
No, what I'm suggesting is we would file a notice of intent for any work that needs to be done within the jurisdictional resource areas. This, again, this work proposed is 95, 98% out of your jurisdiction.
And because
I don't
of it-
disagree that,
Yeah.
it seems to me that from what I'm being told, a notice of intent would be required for that work which is within the jurisdiction. So it still doesn't change the fact of what we're proposing to move forward.
What would you prefer?
Well, the only issue is you've got a violation and you've got another project being proposed, and so you're more or less having the applicant continue on with future projects even though they have a violation in place.
It's
So-
all part of the same property.
Right.
Yeah.
So typically, the board has wanted to get a sense of the violation before issuing approvals for new projects. So that's just been something the board's done in the past. So again, it's up to the board's vote, but that's what I would recommend.
Well, maybe we should continue it on with the
We can,
pending your investigation on the violations.
and maybe we go down and take a look to see how much land had been cleared going down to the coastal bank, to see how far the lawn goes.
Well,
I wonder if we could see the tree stumps or anything.
Regardless, it's still all the same parcel,
Yes.
so it's jurisdictional.
I would be most comfortable cleaning up the past before we move into the future.
All right, anybody else?
I agree.
Agree with that.
So we will continue the RDA until next meeting, and hopefully have a chance to go visit the site, and you report back to us as to what was uncovered and found and done.
Yep.
So, anybody here for this particular project? I'm seeing none. I'll take a motion to continue.
Motion to continue?
I have a motion to continue.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? So I guess you'll be meeting with Mr. Pichette for the 15th.
Yes.
Thank
David,
you.
if you want to just give me a call at your convenience, and
Yep. I'll check in with you tomorrow.
thank you.
Oops, sorry.
Next, Next, we're going to talk a discussion with Agawam Mill Pond Road and CAMP. So those that'd like to come up and talk to us on that particular project, please come forward and identify yourselves. Yes, Mr. Bichette will talk to the project. We all received the document in our email during the week, so I hope you all had a chance to take a look at it. I know it was a long, lengthy document, but that's why it wasn't in your packet, because it was just too big to cut down trees. So I hope you had a chance to read it, but Mr. Bichette will speak to it first.
Okay, Mr. Lenahan's here tonight to speak on behalf of the cleanup of Agawam Mill Pond Group. They've got an order of conditions currently in place that the commission has issued to them for the treatment of invasive aquatic vegetation in Agawam Mill Pond by the application of herbicide. So that's an order of conditions that's currently in place, and they've been doing the work at that site, and I've asked Mr. Lenahan to come in to give the commission an update on what is proposed for this year, which is basically the additional spot treatments within areas of the pond as an ongoing maintenance activity for that treatment work. So he can explain a little bit further as far as where they're at and what's going to be done this coming season.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dave. I think I've seen most of you, well, there are some new faces here, but this is our 4th year of treating the pond. It was a long project. We started 5 or 6 years ago, went through all the state agencies to get permission, presented, hired botanists and so forth to do reports on how we could take care of the problem, because the pond was turning into pretty much a weed-infested swamp. So been very successful. We've been through you. We've been in front of you guys every single year, and so this year here we're into the maintenance phase. The first 3 years we took care of getting the bulk of the invasives out of there by doing it segmental, and this year will be the first year we do like a maintenance phase, which according to our consultants, if we do somewhere between 15 to 20 acres of spot treating, we'll be able to maintain the 100 to 150 acres of open water, clean water. And so that's why we're here today. There's, we find the areas, it's just sort of like if you use, a weed product agent on your lawn, you get most of the weeds, but sometimes some pops up here and there. So that's kind of what's going on. We go around and we find the areas that didn't get cleaned too well, and we'll spot treat those. And it's an ongoing thing. I mean, the weeds will never really be, wiped out, but they will be contained and managed. And it's been a great improvement to the pond, great improvement to the fishing. And so on the plan that we gave you there, part of the big package, there's like, I think it's 6 areas, like 2 acres over here, 4 acres over there. And the total acreage would be 16 this year. So we've got all our approvals from Marine Fisheries, DEP, and the Endangered Species, Natural Heritage. Those are the 3 agencies that we primarily go through every year. They review the results. We test the thing at the end. They, submit all the test reports, final reports. We've given you guys final reports every year. So this is the 4th year, and we are set to go, I hope. Any other questions I hope you took a kayak ride there. I invited you last time. I don't know if you did.
No.
It's getting pretty popular. And you've seen the boat ramp, I suppose, that the state, once we cleaned it up, they decided to build a boat ramp. How convenient. But we're welcoming all All boaters, as long as they clean the weeds off their boats.
before they put it in,
Correct.
or take them out and put them.
Yep, you know the rules. Well, hopefully everyone else does too.
Anybody question on the board? Because I have a couple.
Go ahead.
We permitted the upper river area, but we didn't permit the lower basin, did we? Which was down by the boat ramp and down by the herring. Am I got the right place?
That's correct, yes.
But
Right,
we-
well, that
okay.
was sort of something that we didn't seek permission for that. We kind of, as we
right.
worked along, we decided that, because I have a limit of, a percentage limit of the treatment chemical that, they have a station where we test it near the, because the only endangered plant is something down by the sewer treatment plant, down the river.
Which was covered, you covered the 4 or 5 pieces of plant life that could have been affected, but has not been affected
Right,
by
hasn't.
this,
We've been-
the clipper coming down through the dam.
Exactly.
See, I did read it.
Yep. It's
And
the right-
so I did remember that we hadn't given you permission to do the lower basin because we were concerned as to what would flow down the dam into the
Well,
lower
like I say, I
river.
think,
Yeah.
we could see that it wasn't, there's no sense going too close. But, even though we control the flows in the pond a little bit during a week or so, so that the stuff can do its job, there's a little bit of drift. I mean, because this is a flowing body, so a little bit of stuff goes through. And down below there, that's a lot deeper than the rest of the pond. Mm-hmm. So it has much less of a problem down there. But the little amount of drift that we get has been taking care of that area too, so.
Okay.
And we've been within the limits of everything that the endangered
So you've been very
species-
pleased with the results?
Oh, yeah.
Have the neighbors been pleased with the results?
As a matter of fact, endangered species are so pleased that we don't have to do, every year we've been doing a, botany hunt. We hunt for the weeds down, not the weeds, I mean the endangered plants. And this year we don't have to, because as long as we maintain certain limits,
Yeah.
they're convinced that everything we're doing is good.
Do it where there's not a high tide, do it when the flow is low, so you don't bring more clipper down the stream.
Yeah.
Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak for or against this particular project? I'm seeing none. I mean, it's just, any other questions? But thank you for the update, this is just to give us an update as to what's happening. Yep.
No problem.
All right, so you're all set.
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
We'll
very
see
much.
you
Yep, bye-bye.
again. Thank you.
See you out there this summer.
We have a certificate, we have a certificate of compliance for Paul oh, come on, help me.
That's a great try. That's a great.
I got a Del
Giadanis.
Giadanis at 22 Onset Ave.
That's correct.
Okay. Mr. Bichette will pass out the paperwork and talk to, is everybody here for that one?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so this project was for the construction of a pier at this location, which has been in place for some time now, but again, there wasn't a request for a certificate of compliance until recently. When the request came in, it was found that they hadn't put float stops on the pier. That was then put in place. And then they submitted the request for the certificate of compliance. The pier and float are all consistent with what was approved. The only difference in the whole setup is they did put some benches down the end of the pier before you go down the ramp. Sometimes they try to stick those seating benches on there.
Michael did.
Yes, so that's really the only issue. So it's really a matter of, does the commission want to see those removed, or are you comfortable with it and just want to issue the certificate of compliance
Can you repeat
as it
that,
is?
Dave?
Your opinion on the benches that are there, is it a
To
hindrance?
to repeat, there's some bench seating that's been put at the end of the pier where it was proposed just to be a straight pier to the ramp and then that's it. But they installed some benches down towards the end, which do push out a little bit beyond the footprint of what was approved. It's not a huge difference, so I don't think it's incredibly significant, but I did need to point it out because it was not what was originally shown, so that's all I have to say.
Would you like to comment on that, please?
So my name's Dino Fantasia. I work at New England Home Finders. I'm actually Paul's, and I'm just going to use Paul as his name instead of trying to massacre his last name. So I'm representing Paul on the sale of his house. And unfortunately, Paul was unable to make it tonight. He's in the Azores on vacation. It's a trip he's had planned for a long time. So I'm in a fact-finding mission. Anything that we can do, we actually trying to sell the property. We have buyers that are ready to buy. They sold their house. They sold their house, and they're just waiting to move into this one. But we need to make sure we have our I's and T's dotted and crossed. So any I's and T's that need dotted and crossed, that's what I'm here to see what we can figure out today.
I don't have a problem with it. It's not significant.
No question.
If David thinks it's not significant, I got no problem with it at all.
Thank you.
All right. I'll take a motion.
Motion to close?
No, it wasn't a hearing. I need a motion to approve the, a motion to grant the certification of compliance. I have that motion. I have a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained? You got it.
Thank you, folks.
Oops.
Folks, have a great night. Thank you for your time.
Take it easy.
Is there anything else on our calendar, on our agenda you'd like to cover? Anybody? Dave?
Yes.
I'm sorry to be a pain. Is there any chance I could get a copy of the as-built, David? The engineer only submitted one set of plans, and that was to you.
I think he gave us a couple of sets, so let me just see how many I have here.
There's one here,
Oh, beautiful.
Let's see.
if it's a matching.
Okay. Do you think those are the new
We have the other page.
Yep.
They look very excited, the young ones.
So I have an as-built.
Yeah, so we have, looks like we have a second copy, so if you could, we'd like to keep 2 copies, so if you could take this, maybe get a copy made and submit it back.
Absolutely. I can bring it back to you.
All right, thank you.
very much.
Yeah, take it easy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
I don't have anything further, Mrs. Chairman.
Everybody signing?
Oh, one thing I do have is at the last meeting, we approved an order and it didn't get signed, so I'd like to just pass that around before
Shame on us.
everybody leaves.
Shame on you.
Shame on me. Okay.
Working too much.
Working too much.
Yeah, retirement.
Must be getting busy at the cemeteries.
Yep, the cemetery's busy. I'm working landers 3 days a week.
There you go.
Okay, which one was this for?
Yeah,
That was for lot
Oh, one of the Rocky
6.
Road Realty?
We
Okay.
approved 5 and 6, but we didn't approve 4, but one of the 2 that got approved.
This was either 5 or 6. Okay,
oh, down in Minot Avenue.
down on Minot Ave. If this is 6, is probably the one next to the,
I rode by there and trying to figure out
you saw that, you could see this,
what's what, and it's like,
you could see the
yeah.
post, starting with that empty lot they used to keep their trucks on.
Yeah, now, now what about that's already cleared? What's that? Is that
Those,
part of that
those are
too?
3 more duplexes that we've already approved, and
Okay.
they did the work without the hay bales in place, and Dave caught them, right? So,
Naughty, naughty.
They got fined for
They
that.
got
Are you
fined for
finding
that.
them? That's what I was gonna say. Are you finding them?
Well, they got fined for that for each lot for $300, so.
There's a lot of excavations that gotta be done there, I mean.
Oh, it's a little hilly, yeah.
Big
Okay,
gully and everything else, I rode by there and looked and it's just, this ain't right.
anything else? Are we set? It's different. I'll take the magic words, please.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
And a second, all in favor, aye, opposed. We're adjourned. See you on the 15th, and thank you.